Hey Rivals coaches, Zay Valor here. Let me be one of the first to welcome you to Rivals 4.0. Huge upgrade from 3.0 with a lot of changes we're going to go over. This is going to be a two-part series. First part, we're going to go over the in-game match changes. And then after that, we'll go into how to use the setup function, as well as some more personalization and customization options that Metagames has added for us. Now, a couple things. One, this is still beta footage, so everything you see here might be slightly tweaked by the time you're seeing it, because this will be released when 4.0 launches. But then also, I will not be going over meta, strategy, training. That is something that I want to let everybody explore on their own, and it's just not the purpose of this. So, if you're a new player, welcome to Rivals. This is going to be a huge change for us veteran players, and so let's get into the real meat of it here. Now, when I think of 3.0, first thing that comes to mind is power plays and combo plays. Yeah, using lane swap to get 2 split pushes. Awesome. However, they're confusing. Why do certain ones go? Why do when I want to fight Hydra, why will it not give me 2 farms and instead give me 2 wards? Well, that was a pretty common confusion and frustration, so Metagames took them away. Combo plays are gone in 4.0, which is a good thing. This is going to cause a lot less confusion. It's going to give us a lot of control over our teams, which we'll talk about here in just a second. And so they're gone. Also gone, basic plays. Those controlled laning, aggressive laning, fight Hydra, fight Dragon, gone. All plays now are going to come from champions. What that is to say is that every single phase, 10 plays, 1 per player, and therefore 1 per champion, are being added to the queue per team. So 5 from each team. However, just like 3.0, only 8 are going to be used, which means that there will be 2 plays that can never happen. So, one of the big things here that you're going to have to figure out as a coach is how do you maximize your plays? Because ultimately, we want to have 5 plays to our opponent's 3. Because that's going to give us the most opportunity to scale. It's going to give us the most opportunity to use our training. So how are you going to do that? That's a question I want you to ask yourself here as you're looking at making a team. Another thing is that plays no longer get canceled. This was a point of frustration as well. Somebody goes ahead of you in the initiative order, your champion dies, and suddenly you miss out on that sweet, sweet split push that would push down their 3rd tower. That's gone. That split push will still be in the queue. However, deaths and massive damage, which causes a recall, are going to push you further back in the initiative. It is possible that through your opponent's plays, that play gets pushed from the 3rd spot all the way to the 9th spot and then doesn't happen, which is essentially being canceled. However, there's still always a chance it's there. With that, initiative is still the same. However, as we're going to see here, it's much more predictable and something you will actually be able to plan around. It's still affected by scaling. In fact, the game will tell you if you are ahead or behind in scaling, and that will affect your initiative by 1 or 2 points, which will give teams that are stronger an advantage, just to make sure that everything's fair, because otherwise, if there's a tie and it would decide it randomly, just not good. So it's going to use a very similar system to what we have now. So, now that we know a little bit more about how the queue is getting made, let's talk about what plays are being added. And to do that, we're going to need to figure out a couple things. Let's get started here with how plays are being determined. So I'm going to go ahead real quick. You're going to see a lot of fun things here for a second while I get to the player that I want here. We're going to go to Branka, because she's one of my favorite. Anyway, this is a new champion page. there's a lot of information here, so we're going to go from top to bottom. Top, obviously, we have her beautiful profile picture, her title, flavor text, and then we get to this beautiful circle that's going to give us a lot of information. We're going to start clockwise. We're going to start at the 1 or 2 on the clock where it says class. As normal, her class is still tank. That has not changed. After that, it's the game's trying to assess if this is a comfort pick for the player you're looking at. In this case, it's looking at my opponent's top. It is not a comfort pick, so it's gray. Great. Then we have strong rolls. In 3.0, every play had 3 roles that it could be used in. So for split push, I'm going to keep using that example here. It was top, jungle, and mid. If you were in those positions and had a champ that could use split push, you could use split push during a match. You could choose it. You could use it as a combo play. Well, in 4.0, this has been reduced. In fact, every champ now only has 2 roles that they can be used in. So Branka here can be used in top and mid, and that is it. If she's used in jungle, bot, or support, she is not going to have access to any of her normal plays. She will instead get these weak laning plays that are not only incredibly unimpactful, but incredibly slow. So the slowest actual play, or what we'll call champion plays from now on, the slowest champion play has an initiative of 20. A weak laning play has an initiative of 50. So unless there are multiple champs that are not using their actual champion plays, this will never happen. So you want to avoid that at all possible. Luckily, and I'll let you in on this right away, the transfer market has changed to where players will only have proficiencies in champs that are good in their role. So you will never see a jungler who will have Branka as a comfort pick. Huge. This is going to help us so much with creating viable teams because we don't have to worry about, oh man, I got a jungler, she's got great champs, but she's got Branka, so if she chooses Branka, never going to be able to be used. Well, that won't happen because it's just not possible. Now, if all your comfort picks get banned out and they choose a class pick that is not good in that role, that's when it'll happen. So bans just got a lot more interesting because you can ban people out and essentially take their plays off the table. Moving on, we're going to move over to these 2 at the same time, the one that's called aspect and counters. Let's talk a little bit about what has changed with attributes. Now, we all know, well, veteran players all know, new players, again, welcome. Veteran players know that there have been 8 attributes, 4 personalities and 4 mechanics. Those have been combined now into 5. So, we've got a couple of things here, like, for instance, timing and knowledge together are now scaling, which Branka is. She's a scaling champ. Positioning and communication are now combat. Accuracy and discipline are objectives. Then we've got survivability and awareness are defense. And then we have a 5th new one, which is called map play. So that is the brand new one. And because it doesn't take into account anything, we can actually get our basic team power, or BTP as we like to call it, above 80,000 because now it's completely new. So that's exciting. Numbers are getting bigger. But what's going to happen is instead of the system in 3.0 where it was 1 mechanic, 1 personality to benefit a play, and then 1 personality, 1 mechanic to counter, it's just going to be 1 aspect and 1 aspect. Every single champ is only going to use 1 aspect for their plays. And for Branka, that is scaling. She will be countered by 2 aspects, depending on what play is being used, which is dependent on the phase. And we'll talk about that here in a second. That's at the bottom. So, in this case, her counters are objectives and combat. This is a huge streamlining thing. This is going to make it a lot easier to know what you should train your players in. Before it was, for instance, split push, was survivability and discipline versus accuracy and communication. Well, it turns out the tactics didn't boost those 2 combinations at all. So how did you know what to use, what to train. I mean, you could have a player that would use survivability discipline on one, then accuracy and knowledge on the next, and then survivability and communication. And it was a lot of work to figure out what players needed to be trained in. In fact, it was so complicated, I had to create a spreadsheet just to make sense of it. That's not the case anymore. A lot more streamlined, going to be a lot easier to train players because we know based on their champs what aspects they are wanting to use. And then for banning, we know what aspects counter certain champs. This is going to help us a ton in making sure what we can almost perfectly predict what's going to happen during the phases and ban accordingly. We know what will be good against and what will be bad against. So let's talk about these plays. At the bottom of Branka's page here, you do see that she has 5 plays. So they are split up based on role. So if she's in top, in the early game, she's going to use Farm Lane, which is initiative 20. It uses scaling, and it is countered by defense. Objectives. In the mid to late, she uses scaling and is countered by combat for her play Team Push. In the middle, then, that's going to be her power play. That is Lane Swap. Lane Swap, it can be used only in the mid, has initiative 18, scaling versus objectives. In the mid role, she has the exact same plays. But if we move over, for example, to Fipsy here, you can see that his plays are wildly different for his 2 roles. In jungle, he's got counter jungle and split push. In support, he's got ambush and lurk. So you're going to be able to tailor your team based on what position you put champs. They will always add these plays to the queue, with one exception. The one exception is if they use their power play. Now again, for veterans of the series, for 3.0, you know that power plays could be used twice during a phase. They could be, so if you had lane swap for Branka, in the mid, you could use lane swap 2 times. That's gone. You can only use it once. Once a power play is used, it is no longer available to you. If you want to use lane swap twice, you're going to need both Branka and Skater to do so. Now, does this make team building a little bit more difficult? Yes. Does it make it better? Yes. Because now you can't just have one champion that carries you. Anyone who has played against Rinks knows what it's like to have one champion carry a team. It is frustrating, it is incredibly annoying, and makes it just unfun. That is gone now. You get one phase of that powerful play, and then you have to rely on the rest of your plays. So, going to be very helpful. A couple other things that have been added for our planning a team. If we go into Farm Lane, you actually have a bunch of information here. Not only is it going to tell you what players are going to be involved, in fact, it's going to be top and jungle, it'll give you a description, it'll tell you the phase, it'll tell you the initiative, and then if we go to results, it'll actually show you what a blue, gray, or red result will do. This is a huge step forward in transparency. So much of the knowledge of 3.0, especially for top players, was just experiential. We had to figure out what plays did and memorize their initiatives, their results. We had to do that to figure out what is a good play and what is a bad play. No longer the case. Metagames has given us all the tools to see everything before the match. So, huge changes there. So, just to go over one more time, the biggest changes in 4.0 are the removal of champion plays. Power plays can only be used once per game. Every player adds a play to the queue based on their champion. Only 8 of those plays will get used. And it is based on initiative, which can be influenced by scaling, death, and recall of champions. And so that's the biggest changes for 4.0. And part of the reason I'm so excited about it is because it adds so much weight to the decisions out of game. Out of the match, the planning is going to be what determines so much of this. So very excited about it. Go ahead, and now may be a good time to just try a scrim match. And come back and we will talk about more setups, and some customization and fun stuff here. But make sure you watch how the queue is created and how it shifts and changes. We're going to have a lot better understanding of how each phase should go before the match. So try to predict it, try to see what plays you want to be using, and figure out what aspects you're going to train. I will let you go do that, and then come back. There will be a link in the description to the next part. We'll talk more about setups and how you can use scouting to your advantage. I'll see you in the next video, coaches.